The philanthropy sector is quite hierarchical. My experience within Hewlett highlights a culture that encourages collaboration, learning, and open dialogue. So the internal dynamics are built on trust, mutual respect, and shared values, contributing to a healthy working environment.
I think the Dignity Agenda helps funders to set the North Star, regardless of what areas that we're focusing on. The Dignity Agenda connects us to our grantee partners and people who we ultimately serve deeply at the personal level. And I think this deep connections is essential and material for how we as funders journey with them in all possible ways to achieve our common goals. It cannot be shown in a written report. We have just completed the grantee perception survey and asked partners to rate our performance and then give us concrete feedback as well. And we can also benchmark against different foundations, including with our peers who are operating in a similar way. And we actually got really good inputs. For once, then partners recognize our efforts in becoming more participatory, appreciates the human connections. They really want us to visit them more.
So I think a dignity lens is useful for funders in part because it cascades down from how funders treat research communities and the practitioners with whom they work, hopefully for how those teams treat each other, and then how that also trickles down into research, the actual conduct and follow up on research. But that only works if your program officers aren't running 10 different initiatives at the same time, and you're able to devote a little bit of time to that you pick program officers that have networks themselves.
Beyond the rigorous due diligence and the grantee engagement, I think we also invest heavily on long-term commitments. Hewlett provide multi-year funding to give grantees stability and the freedom to innovate, because we believe that only strong and healthy organizations could do effective work. So we internally have what we call the 7 habits of excellent work with grantees. And those are very close to what you call the dignity agenda. There are 7 very simple habits that we use to do our work on a daily basis. And every and each Hewlett Foundation staff have them on their desk. Habit number 1 is about responding in a timely and courteous manner to all grantees and potential grantees. Habit number 2 is to show curiosity about the grantee's whole organization, not only the parts that relate to our strategy and goals. Habit number 3 is about setting time and process expectation by making our expectations and commitment explicit when inviting grantees to submit a proposal or throughout the life cycle of each grant. And habit number 4 is about making results matter by having conversation with each grantee about how they plan to measure their result from the grant. And habit number 5 is about providing flexible, as I said, and multi-year support where possible. And when making a project grant, even we tend to understand and support the true cost of the work, not only implementation. Habit number 6 is about being clear and consistent about strategy and criteria for decision making, verbally, but also in written communication with grantees. And the last habit, habit number 7, and you will now understand why at Hewlett Foundation we put grantees on the forefront of everything. It's about listening as much as we talk in conversations with grantees.
We started to have learning conversations instead of a very rigid written report. Of course, this is not changed overnight. So first of all, for example, is how we can increase the resources, resourcing constituent-led organizations directly, or to support partners by, for example, providing more financial resources, technical expertise for them to engage with the communities in a more meaningful way. There are actually lots of champions and people who really have really good experiences and knowledge on participations. Instead of listening to us or commissioning an external consultants to help them, then we also facilitate exchanges and learning among the grantee partners so that there can be some peer learning. We also gather feedback which we need to improve. For example, we simplified the application process and we thought we have done a decent job, but then actually from partners, feedback is not enough. And you need to provide more clarity. You have to simplify it further.
We'll be gathering at the University of Nairobi in 6 weeks at the beginning of October for our Mercury Project Solutions Summit. We really want practitioners in the room, including those on the front line. So we're making a real effort to bring in a couple, for example, community health workers to have them in the room alongside people from UNICEF headquarters, people from Merck, people from Google Health. So really trying to get the mix of people in the room. Another way that we've worked on the mix that I think is useful is so each team that we fund, so we have 18 teams, would nominate 2 researchers to send, at least that we'll pay for. We also ask them to nominate 2 external stakeholders that they thought would really benefit from learning about their evidence. But we're also really trying to build in that connective piece quite intentionally, especially, sometimes researchers are a little bit socially awkward. So we need to help them kind of connect. We made some very intentional decisions that each project had to give itself a name. So we don't refer to the projects by like the star PI in terms of respecting people's time, right? A tight proposal, 6 pages, no formatting requirements, pretty clear though on like content requirements. We also offered slightly informally matchmaking for promising proposals that came in from low and middle income country PIs. We reached out and said, this has promise, but we think like on methods, you might be able to use a little bit more help. Would you be interested in us trying to connect you to someone to see if there's like a matchmaking match there? And one of our 18 teams does reflect that process working. We try to be pretty responsive to people, and at least for their initial like 2-page submission, their letter of interest. So we did have a little bit of a filtering process, gave people a lot of feedback, gave them a chance to resubmit, and then it went to external review. Well, some things we try to minimize the requirements of grantees. So we have a pretty simple reporting system once a month, just kind of like % progress made, and we have a little dashboard. And then we try to really tailor our interim reports to the information that we need for our own upward reporting and try to make that as easy as possible. We try to minimize those kinds of asks. I think there's a lot of places where once you have a personal connection with people, and like it was really important right out of the gate, we had our first annual in-person convening. So at least met one person from each team then in an environment that allowed us to foster WhatsApp or like Twitter DM or other like slightly more casual relationships that then become formal when they need to be. But people can kind of say like, maybe you wouldn't write your grants officer if you hadn't hung out with them. But like now it's like, we're kind of going to face this problem. Do you think it's actually going to be a problem? And trying to like alleviate people's stress as soon as possible.